Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Precious Metal Summit here in Zurich. It's day one, and we continue with Trilogy Metals, and Tony Giardini, the CEO, is here with us. Hey, pleasure seeing
nice
you.
to meet you, Johan.
Thanks for taking the time. You are the first time on Commodity TV. Maybe you give us a short overview on the company.
Sure. Trilogy is traded in Toronto and New York. We're listed under the ticker symbol TMQ. We're focused on base metals and critical metals in the great state of Alaska, and we've had lots of news lately about what's happening with our company, and I'm excited to give the viewers an update.
Super, perfect. Yeah, I also watched a little bit your latest news and went through your presentation. I was really impressed, I must say. And Alaska was in the former years not so easy to do, yeah. But I must say, since President Trump and also before already, I think a lot of good things opened up. First of all, Ambler Road access. I think that's a big thing for you guys also. But you also had lately an investment of $35.6 million by the U.S. Ministry of War. So that's a big honor, I would say. I mean, the name is strange, but...
Sure. No, I don't think it's strange. I think, let's talk about the road first. And the road's been a long process to actually get to where we are. And President Trump had actually granted the permit to the state of Alaska to advance a road in 2020. And then, unfortunately, we ran into some political headwinds in the state of Alaska and the U.S., and that was overturned in 2024. And now President Trump has effectively reinstated that record of decision through a presidential decree that we understand can't be overturned by a future president. So that gives us certainty that the road is going to advance, and there's lots of news coming out with respect to the road. In fact, after the announcement from President Trump, they've reinstated all of the permits necessary for the road to advance. So we felt that that was great news in and of itself when that came out. And then secondly, as you pointed out, Johan, it was about the Department of War and the investment of 5% in Trilogy, but acquiring a 5% stake from our JV partner, South 32 as well. So they'll have a 10% stake in Trilogy directly, roughly about $36 million, which will go into the joint venture to allow us to advance the project. And what we feel that investment really does is it underscores the government's keen interest on seeing this project move forward. And it's almost a validation of sorts that this is a project that they see as critical from a domestic metals production perspective in the U.S.
Yeah, exactly. I think those are, domestic metals production, meaning metals from the U.S. for the U.S., right?
Absolutely.
So you have no tariffs, no hassle, nothing, because the industry needs it really.
Absolutely.
And what I found also interesting is you said base and critical metals. You, to my understanding, you have all the metals which are really needed. Yeah, like copper, gold, cobalt, etc. I mean, that is outstanding.
It is, and if you look further north from us, there's a mine called Red Dog. It's owned by Teck and Nana, and it's the largest zinc mine in the world. But they're also a large producer of germanium, and that germanium gets produced in Alaska, gets sent down to British Columbia and refined at the Trail Refinery. So we know that there's germanium in the district as well, and that's an important critical metal that the U.S. government is focused on for defense purposes. So our story is very much a critical metal story. It's a defense story. It's about, as you said, domestic production for domestic use. I think we're going to steal that phrase from now on, Elaine. And I think it plays quite nicely into the message that we're trying to talk about. But I think the other really part of a story that people perhaps don't appreciate is the incredible upside in the district that exists. So we've drilled about 200,000 meters in the Arctic belt, and the Arctic belt runs roughly 100 kilometers. If you look at similar type of VMS belts in North America, whether it's in Flin Flon, whether it's Bathurst in New Brunswick, whether it's Noranda in northern Quebec. In the case of northern Quebec and Flin Flon, they've drilled more like 3 million meters. And so we've only started to scratch the surface of a district, and I think that played into the decision of the U.S. government to think about how these domestic supply of metals, not just the Arctic deposit, but the string of pearls and other deposits in the district, can really lead to, production for decades upon decades.
Yeah, definitely. So what do you need to do 2026 to, let's say, enlarge the project to really bring it further? What are your next steps?
Yeah, so first and foremost, we're going to have a budget coming out in December that's going to talk about what we're prepared to spend on the project. That budget is going to be focused on exploration activities at the Ambler Mining District. It's also going to be focused on permitting. We expect to start the mine permitting process sometime early in 2022, 2026. And then we'll be focused also on additional study work. Trilogy's done a feasibility study on Arctic. There's a PFS at the JV level. We want to get that finalized and moving to the next phase of study work. So I would say those will be the big expenditures. And then I think the other expenditure will be on the road. We've got an agreement with Ada where Ambler Metals was planning to spend a total of $35 million. Out of that $35 million, we've spent 20 already. There's an remaining $15 million that we'll likely start to spend in 2026. We've also just seen an announcement from Ada indicating that they want to earmark $50 million for the road. So we think there's a lot of activity that's going to be happening with respect to the road as well. So I think it's all of those factors that are going to be out there, and then we're going to be out there telling the story in a more in a more fulsome perspective. Because I would say for the last 2 to 3 years we've been sitting on our hands, unfortunately waiting for things to play out with respect to clarity on the road. Now that we have that clarity, it's about moving the project forward in a meaningful fashion.
How long will the build finally for the road be?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I don't really have an answer for you. I think I did before, but I think it's changed with the U.S. government coming in as a partner. It really underscores that the whole environment has changed. So the one thing that I can draw the listeners to is that when the Dalton Highway was built, that was in 1974, it was roughly double the length of the Arctic Road. It was built in a total of 5 months. Do I think our road's going to be built in 5 months? No, but I don't think it's also going to be built in the timeline that would have been previously thought. I think there's a path to try to move a road forward more quickly. And I think they'll also be looking at how they can advance a road so that either an ice road or a pioneer road can be built to allow equipment and materials to go in to facilitate more exploration and drilling and ultimately development at a lower cost.
Yeah. So would that mean once you have, let's say, a production decision, you're going to build that huge mine, the road should be ready, of course. Yeah, that's one thing.
The road actually won't need to be ready, because the road will need to be ready when you actually start to transport concentrate. What you'll need the road to be ready for is to allow yourself to be able to bring materials and supplies in to build the mine. But ideally, obviously, you want to have a path where the road is moving forward in a meaningful fashion before you make that investment decision. And I think for us right now, we're focused on how do we advance Arctic on a standalone basis. We also have another deposit called Bornite, which is adjacent to Arctic. It's about 20 miles away from Arctic. It contains about 208 million tons at 1.42% copper with cobalt. And one of the things that we showed was that there was a pathway to incorporate Bornite as part of the Arctic development, in the sense that if you didn't find more, let's say the string of pearls really doesn't exist, it's only Arctic that's there and we can't find more. We've got the ability to bring in roughly 33 to 40 million tons of material from a Bornite deposit, process it through the Arctic mill, and take the life from 13 years to 30 years. So those are the things that we're thinking about conceptually. Those are the things that we're focused on. It's important that everyone understand that the road is a private access road only. It's industrial use, and that we'll be working with the native communities to ensure that their concerns with respect to subsistent hunting and fishing are maintained, and they'll be a big part of the process in terms of advancement of not just the road, but of the district itself.
Absolutely. Time-wise, let's put it that way. How much money do you think you need to build the mine? Yeah, because you have that pre-feasibility. And the first thing and second thing is what timeline are we talking that you could be then in production?
I think if you look at everything, and our feasibility study at the Trilogy level indicates a cumulative capital cost of $1.1 billion on a 100% basis. So the Trilogy component would be roughly $550 million that would need to be funded. I think having the U.S. government as a shareholder now gives us a lot of flexibility to look at lots of options. I think we have many options before, and we certainly aren't looking at equity as a basis for financing. That will either be through debt or other instruments that will give us flexibility in terms of moving it forward. So that's how we're looking at the cumulative capital. In terms of our current cash position, we raised a little bit of money recently. We're sitting on roughly $50 million at the corporate level. There'll be $40 million in the JV. That's enough to fund our activities for the next couple of years easily without any problems whatsoever. And in terms of timelines, I think it depends on what I set out earlier, which is how focused are we in advancing the road? How much of a willingness is it to move this project forward? What I would say is that I believe that the administration came into this project with the view that a lot of things can be de-risked within the remaining 3-year time period of the Trump administration, which ends basically another election in November of 2028.
Yeah.
And, it shouldn't be lost on people that they want to see real progress made with respect to the project by that date. So we think that we're not going to be in production, but I think there's going to be a lot of activity that will take in place that will put us in a very strong position by that date.
Super, yeah. And your metals are needed.
Absolutely,
That's for
they
sure.
are. Absolutely,
So
they
everybody
are.
wants them.
Absolutely, they are.
Super. Tony, thank you very much.
Yep.
That was a real fast and powerful impression of your company. Thanks. And I think you guys do the right stuff. You have the right metals, right spot, right jurisdiction. So
Well,
build the mine.
Johan, thank you. And thank you to Commodity TV for interviewing us here in Zurich at the Precious Metal Conference.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that was Tony Giardini, the CEO of Trilogy Metals. And you heard it. This is in Alaska, in the heart here for the USA. Metals from the USA for the USA. That's exactly what the country wants, what they want to develop, what the Trump administration is really pushing forward. And I would suggest you have a look on this wonderful company. Thanks for watching us, and bye-bye from Zurich Precious Metal Summit.